Today's episode of the Inside EVs podcast is brought to you by E-Range EV Tyre. E-Range EV tyres are specifically engineered for electric vehicles. Using an advanced manufacturing process called liquid phase mixing, E-Range EV's EcoPoint 3 technology creates a tyre with lower rolling resistance and longer range, while offering low levels of wear and high grip. All this while staying affordable. Go to erangetires.com. That's ERANGE tires.com to find your EV's next set of tyres.
By Hazel Southwell, who is one of our regular guests. I am filling in for Alex. He is unavailable. I know, I'm sorry. I lied to you guys all last week and said he would be back this week, but I'm Miss Go Electric, and I'm going to be taking over for him for one more day as the host. And then, of course, we have Brett Evans, who is part of the Inside EVs team. Boots on the ground. I saw you were at IAA, so I'm excited to hear your viewpoint from being at one of the biggest auto shows of the year. But we have a ton of news this week, as I'm sure you guys have seen with IIA and a lot of new reveals. So we're going to hop into it here pretty quickly. I don't know if he's going to roll the little EV news thing, so that's what I was waiting for.
EV news.
Sorry, I really like those. Those are so cute. You guys did a great job on them, so I figure I wait for them. But anyways, let's dive right into the IAA reveals, because there was so much. Like, it's incredible. And although some people might not like to talk about concept cars, there were quite a few of them. But the good thing is that a lot of them are actually going to come to life in some form. So let's kick off actually with one that actually we didn't have this on the list, so I'm just going to go rogue for a minute, but I'm not going to talk about it for long, which is the BMW Neue Klasse. It is almost kind of like a basically a foundation of what their EVs in the future are going to be like, with a new approach. They're going to make a bunch of different form factors of this particular like platform, I guess you could call it, in sedans and SAVs and the like. But they're going to have, within a 24-month period, 6 new all-electric models that are going to be released. And these are going to be manufactured in 2025. So although they are like conceptual at this stage, BMW has said pretty much that they are going to be very close to what it's going to look like for production. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but what do you guys think of the Neue Klasse concept? It looks a lot like the iVision concepts that they've already put out, like the circular and the D, but what are your thoughts behind this?
I'm a little bit disappointed. Well, so I really love the circular. Like, it's like a cyber Twingo. I think it's gorgeous. I have never ever been more like, why isn't this a car I can buy, about a concept, than like with the iVision Circular. Seeing it in real life, like everything about it, because I was there when it was unveiled and at IAA 2021, and like I want, like, the sheer like lust to drive it was so severe. And whereas this, I mean, it feels stupid saying it looks like a BMW, because clearly that is the idea. But it does just kind of look like a BMW. And that's fine.
I'm just so beyond relieved that it's kind of a toned down design. I don't.
What, you don't like the chunky grills?
Believe it or not,
I like the chunky
like everyone
grills.
else.
I want to hear this in the comments.
I am
People
the
watching
IX
right now,
defender.
give us your opinion about the chunky grill, because I am a no chunky grill girl.
Well, and so to be totally clear, I actually don't mind it on the iX. I've like come around it fully, and I think it's a decent looking SUV. But I was a friend of ours, Tim Stevens, who occasionally contributes to Inside EVs and Motor One. spoke with the designer who said that he wants to live in a future where cars look happy and friendly. He said something like, "We see dystopian futures on TV and in the movies. I don't want to see them on the road. I want people to smile when they see our cars." And that kind of changed my tune a little bit on the Neue Klasse. It just made me like, oh yeah, it does look friendly and happy, and I do like seeing happy things in the world instead of angry, mean things. So like I'm kind of.
I think there's a line here though, like because the Twingo, happy and friendly, like I really hope my Twingo hasn't been crushed. Please tell me where you've towed her. But like, I think you can have cool looking cars that, and also there's a balance between like, it feels like Hyundai are the only car maker that are making cars for our dystopian future that we're living in, where it's not just completely depressing and boring. Like, if we have to live in this horrible, like, apocalyptic time, at least Hyundai are making things that look sick. And like if we have to live in Blade Runner, then I want to live in at least the cool bits, you know? But
so the Neue Klasse is just going to be this like bright yellow, delightful, charming little thing driving down war-torn, ravaged streets. Is that the idea? Is that it's like too far in the happy direction?
And smiling. Everyone is just going to be smiling around this dystopian future.
I just think it looks a bit too executive, which is a really rubbish criticism of a BMW because that's exactly what they are. But like, I can sort of smell the suit, you know?
I mean, honestly, I feel like I like the new look of it because I feel like they'll get somewhat close to creating a production version that doesn't stray too far away from this, because I feel like it looks somewhat practical to see on the road, especially considering the greenhouse it's not like super aerodynamic where you see like that traditional like, moon shape over the top where it's just very optimized for aero. Like this actually in that part, like where the Hofmeister's kink is supposed to be, looks like a BMW to me. So like I do like that. But just to give you a couple of details about the next generation BMW electric powertrain, because they did release some information about that, is that these are going to be built on a platform that has a 20% increase in energy density, 30% increase in charging speeds, and 30% in range, with overall vehicle efficiency improving by 25%. So not only is this like a whole, conceptual idea beyond like the design of it, but also moving towards a direction where efficiency is becoming important. And honestly, if you guys have watched any of my content or have seen me tweeting or anything, I am like a stan about efficiency. Like I think that automakers need to prioritize this. It really bothers me when they slap these big battery packs to get the range they want to achieve. They need to engineer. We know these companies can engineer. They just need to get past the hurdle of moving into the EV space and like prioritizing it. So I'm excited for that part of it. So
I'm
very
100%
cool.
with you there. Like the technology in the Neue Klasse is much more exciting to me than the look. And like, because BMW also have been one of the brands that have really taken, like they used to be in Formula E and they put their Formula E braking system directly into the iX. And that's why the iX is so cool to drive. And like,
agreed.
They're one of the brands that are actually doing really interesting things with technology in terms of EV stuff, and kind of being weirdly quiet about it.
Yeah, I'd agree. Let's move on to the next German automaker, which is Mercedes, their CLA class concept, because I am going to continue that thought there of the hope for this going into production and having everything that they say it's going to have. And another thing that is a concept, but they said is very close to production intent. So it'll probably look very similar to what we see in these images. But essentially to give you guys just a little bit. There look at the star of the show, Brett there. You got a peek up close to it. So I'm excited to hear your opinion about it, especially in the interior of this car. But essentially what this is Mercedes is finally coming out with a platform that is developed from scratch, because all their previous EQ models have been like an iteration with an ICE powertrain able to like fit onto that platform. So this is going to be a built from scratch Mercedes modular architecture called the MMA. And this is going to be basically their next generation platform where they're going to build a ton of different products on it. And in this particular concept that they're showing off, they're not only going to have what you see here is the CLA concept, but they'll also have a 4-door coupe, a shooting brake, and 2 SUVs, according to their press release. So a lot to come from this. Most of the learnings that they had from the EQXX, if you guys are familiar with that concept that they've revealed a while ago, that's been at a couple shows. Essentially, that was basically a concept where they were trying to achieve like insane efficiency. It got like over 600 miles of range, and it was just kind of wild looking. But they're taking a lot of those learnings and putting it into this platform. So this is going to be expected to get about 466 miles of range on the WLTP cycle, and the consumption rate, which is mind-blowing, of 5.2 miles per kilowatt hour. Like, that is crazy efficiency. So I'm really hoping they can hit these targets. They say that they're going to hit the targets based on the new battery technology that they're coming out with. It's going to be an 800-volt architecture system. You'll have 250 kilowatt DC fast charging speeds. It'll be bidirectional capable as well, not only for V2H, but also V2G. So you'll have home capability and also sending that energy back to the grid, which is super cool. They'll have 2 different battery packs to choose from. So the cell chemistries will be between an LFP, a lithium iron phosphate. So less energy dense typically is what we see with that. And then sodium oxide, which is a developing technology that has been talked about for quite some time that automakers have invested a lot in and just need to essentially get it to a manufacturing scale and have a consistent threshold when charging. So when the expansion and release happens, it doesn't compromise the materials essentially. But hopefully by 2025 or whenever we see this product in particular, we'll have that on the road. The drive unit is going to be new. It'll be modular, 175 kilowatt unit, a 2-speed transmission, which we're starting to see is becoming pretty popular with new EVs, especially in the performance side of things. It'll have a silicon carbide inverter for more efficient use of that power, a heat pump, amongst a ton of other things. So, Brett, I want to hear your opinion about this car because it looked gorgeous, especially on the interior.
Yeah, they really kind of nailed it with the design, at least. The Concept CLA class is, they did commit, Mercedes did commit to a production version of the MMA platform by the end of 2024. We would see it on the road. So, and what's really interesting about this platform is it is EV first, but it's not EV exclusive. So there are going to be internal combustion variants of the CLA, the SUVs that we can assume are going to be the GLA and the GLB. But they're going to be electric first. So the compromise of the vehicle, instead of being on the EV side of the equation, is now on the internal combustion side, which is really, really cool to see. Companies know, they know that like to achieve cost parity, they need to offer a gasoline version of a car, but they're now kind of transitioning to a future where the electric version is the one that gets most of the attention in terms of the engineering. So really cool to see. I just knocked my earbud out.
That's a big deal.
When you look at the interior, you were mentioning it kind of briefly, and it is just absolutely fabulous. And part of the CLA class story that Mercedes was trying to tell wasn't just about range and efficiency, which are both very, very impressive, but we're also about sustainability. So this cabin gets tons of kind of unique sustainability materials. The floor mats are made out of bamboo, which is an incredibly fast-growing product. Very easy on the environment, all things considered. And then the seats are made out of Napa leather, but they're tanned with waste coffee bean husks. So it's a product that
real problem with the leather. I'm sorry. I find it such a cheese for a car company to be like, oh, we're doing sustainability and then put leather in something. Leather is one of the single most unsustainable products in the entire world. It is so bad. And like to sit there with a concept and you can't even put a sustainable product in instead of leather, that I really think that's like just
there's kind of
pretty appalling.
I'm not well informed enough to have like a really strong opinion on this matter, but there are some, one of the reasons that they gave was faux leather, until we have like a really good plant-based substitute for faux leather, is an oil-based product, and it's not terribly recyclable. It's not terribly reusable. And so their kind of argument was, Napa, the leather that they get comes from the beef production, the beef industry, and it's their cows that would be led to slaughter anyway.
I mean,
I
that's
don't.
even genuinely even worse, because that means it's probably rainforest leather. Like,
I mean, I don't disagree.
Mercedes are really pulling a cheese there, and I really
Okay.
think they deserve being called out.
I think
That's
it's an
totally fair,
interesting.
especially. Oh,
Sorry, I just think it's an interesting balance because you have the luxury buyer that wants leather. Like I've spoken to a ton of luxury buyers because as part of my job working for different automakers, I hear them say like, "Oh yeah, like leather is like a no like compromise thing. This is what I want." So I'm sure it's challenging deciding to whether you want to market as a sustainable product and actually making something that is somewhat sustainable. But to your point, like most of them are like made out of a polymer, so they're using plastic and fossil fuels anyway. So it's this weird like tango. So I think they definitely need to do a more progressive job of like the materials side of things and trying to
well, and this comment that we have on
that direction.
This comment that we have on the screen is a great point, because Mercedes is actually developing mycelium leather, which is it's made from the base spores that exist worldwide that grow mushrooms, and so they are working on it, and it's kind of in a very like prototypical phase where they need to get the durability up there. But that's what the EQXX had on it. Like you said, Hazel, for a concept car. The EQXX had this mycelium leather because that was the story that they were telling with that vehicle, was purely vegan, very limited on oil-based products, and I would love to see that as well. I'm not, to be totally clear, I'm not defending leather. I just kind of anyway, but it would be great to see more sustainability for sure in products like this in the future. But I'm most interested though with the CLA, like beyond the interior exterior styling is fabulous. It's a really good looking car, and I think that's going to make people excited to own an EV, which is always a good thing. But I'm really excited for these, like you mentioned them really briefly, the battery chemistries that it's going to offer, and kind of like pushing the bar a little bit further in terms of battery chemistry to get that efficiency rating. They didn't say what kind of battery was going to be under the car, but you can do a little napkin math and figure that it's probably about 88 to 90 kilowatt hours of usable capacity, which is a big battery for a little car. But it'd be great to see that advanced energy density, like that denser energy battery, appear in something with a 50 kilowatt hour battery, something a little smaller and a little bit lighter and more efficient even still.
What do you think about that, Hazel? Do you think that they can actually achieve? Because, I mean, they've invested in a lot of different battery companies where they're working on these different chemistries, and so has everybody else. So it's kind of almost, to me, like reading about it for so long, I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it type thing.
I feel like there's a reasonable chance. So Mercedes, by the time these cars would be, or cars on the MMA platform would be in production, their factory that's a sort of joint investment between themselves and CATL in Hungary will be online. So they'll be producing batteries in the European Union, and that explicitly always was for the MMA platform. So I mean, things like LFP are much closer than people generally are sort of making out. Sodium oxide, I think, is still a little way off, but it will be so much cheaper that I think it could be a potential way. I'm sorry, there's a siren outside my house. I live in Peckham. I can see that being something that is viable. I also think probably some of the efficiency that they're talking about with 5.2 miles per kilowatt hour is gonna come heavily from regeneration and from managing braking. Mercedes have a lot of experience in Formula One. They also have experience in Formula E, and all of that energy recovery technology can go into making a very efficient recovery system. Which means that we could be looking at really quite small battery packs. So in order to achieve the kind of range that they want, you could well be looking at starting at a 50 or 60 kilowatt hour, which massively reduces the weight of the car, which immediately increases the range anyway, because as soon as you can take that battery weight down, as soon as you can take that battery size down, you're making a more efficient car.
Yep.
Especially on such a compact car like this, where so much of the weight proportionally is the battery. So I think downsizing, especially, and if we can convince American consumers particularly that they don't need 400 miles of range, they'd be just fine with 200 and 250 miles of range, giving them a 45 kilowatt hour CLA class would be just perfect. I would love it.
I agree. I'm excited for this. I think, honestly, out of all of these, I think I'm most excited for Mercedes, just because I feel like I can take my pitchfork down a little bit. Like, okay, you guys are going in the direction that we want you to go in, as far as, creating a vehicle that people with EVs, like, they want. They want better range, but they don't want a big battery. They want the efficiency up, but they want good charging, with 250 kilowatt DC fast charging. That's pretty good. That's not 350, but still, it has bidirectional charging. I think that's a huge deal. A heat pump, like, yes, like, all of these things are pointing to this is great news. So I think I'm most excited about this. But let's move on to the next one. Although, actually, right before we do that, Brett, did they say anything to you about the little G? Because I saw that they kind of like were hinting towards the like mini G-Wagon.
I didn't want to disappoint you in the intro. I wasn't actually at IAA. I was only there to see the CLA class. So I didn't get the press conference.
Oh,
I didn't get
boo.
the mini G. I know, I'm so disappointed. And once they announced that, I was like, I was there one or 2 days before IAA. And once I saw the mini G floating around on InsideEVs and on social media, I was just like, what the heck, people? I was right there. Like, we could have had this conversation, just you and me, but no dice. It was really annoying.
Yeah, well, you win some, you lose some. That's all right. I figured I'd ask before we moved on. Okay, let's go on to another German automaker. I know this wasn't in the show lineup, but I do want to talk about it because I think it's so cool. Is the Volkswagen ID GTI concept. This is based on the ID2 All concept that they debuted earlier. But essentially, this is going to be built on the MEB platform. We'll see where it goes as far as availability. I'm sure Europe's going to get it. So, Hazel, you'll have these probably in your backyard. But they're expected to be on the road a version of this in 2027 by the latest. So it is far out, but it's got a lot of really cool stuff. They didn't give like specs or anything like that. But there's going to be some stuff that's familiar from the GTI, classic GTI, as far as like performance and how the dynamics handle that will carry over. So the front axle differential lock is going to be electronically controlled with a vehicle dynamics manager. So that's very similar to what we already see excuse me, in the GTI concept. They're saying that the letter I in GTI is going to stand for intelligence now instead of injection. And so they're really looking for continuing that high performance like feel of it, but also bringing it into the modern era. And then another thing that I saw on there that was a GTI experience control, so that the center console is going to let you choose the characteristics of how the powertrain will perform. And so I just think that it is so cool that they're like taking the GTI name, which is a big name in the Volkswagen group, and making an electric version of it. And again, this is a concept, but supposedly there's going to be something that comes on the road. I just hope they bring it to America, please. We love these like little cars as well.
I'm so glad you brought this up, because this is like my favorite thing out of IAA. Because like I'm a British person who drives little cars. I like silly little hot hashes, and like
this is one.
The Golf GTI, that is like one of the iconic kind of like drive it around a car park and like do some silly donuts and shred your tires cars. And like I really love this because it looks so fun. Like I immediately want to take it to like Snetterton or something and like bang it around a track. And it's not going to be a track record, but it will be like one of the most fun things to drive. And yeah, I love it. It looks obviously stupid. Intelligent is definitely not what this thing is. This is very much a like leave your brain at home car. But yeah, like I obviously want to get in one like tomorrow.
Yes. What do you think, Brett?
I love the proportions of it.
Yes.
I think it's such a appealing little like, I love that it kind of looks a little bit retro. Kind of has that like stubby proportion. Sorry, my dog's going bonkers. Stubby proportions and like a short hood and a stubby little rear deck. I like that they hid the rear door so it looks like a two-door. It just throws major like Rabbit GTI energy, and I love it so much.
And they kept like the wheel haunches, like it looks like a GTI to me, like in a lot of ways. So I'm glad that they stuck still to, because and I'm sure everyone else is sick of this, but stop making EVs that look weird. Like just make a car and then make it an EV. Like it doesn't have to look weird, please. And that's totally. I think this is definitely achieving that. Like it is still like on the lines of the ID DNA, I would say, but it is, I think, more like, I love how they combined the GTI design with it as well to make it not feel so, because I feel like a lot of the ID products are really rounded and soft and very like, but this looks a little bit more aggressive, which is what we want with this car. So I don't know. I loved it, and I had to bring it up. So sorry for going rogue a little bit, but I just loved that one. Another,
I'm so keen to like blast past someone in like the BMW Neue class on the motorway in like this nasty little hot hatch.
Yes. I love it. It's a stunner for sure. I agree, Ben. I think it looks so cool. Okay, let's move on to another crazy fun looking car, which is the Mustang Mach-E Rally. Now this was actually announced like on the first, I think probably like Real Public Day or something like that, because it was yesterday, wasn't it, that this was announced. And basically the Mustang Mach-E Rally is going to be a rally car, which is so cool. It's a tuned Mustang Mach-E GT powertrain with 2 motors. It's going to target 480 horsepower, which is the same as what we saw in the GT powertrain, but it has more torque, a little bit more torque at 649 or 50 pound-feet of torque. That's the estimate. It's a 91 kilowatt-hour usable battery. What they've done primarily as far as handling goes and optimizing the suspension for this kind of vehicle is the suspension's been raised 20 millimeters, so close to an inch. And it's equipped with specially tuned springs. It has the Magna Ride, like, so that's their magnetic suspension system. It also has bigger front disc brakes with Brembo calipers. They also put on Michelin Cross Climate 2 tires, so 235 by 55, 19-inch wheels. They have more sidewall and loose surface grip compared to the GT, supposedly, so really good for sliding around, but also having good performance supposedly in like winter conditions. It has protective shielding, not only to protect the motors underneath the vehicle itself, but also there's film on the doors, there's mud flaps and all that. It has a recovery point in the front end. The front end, you can tell, looks a little bit different too because it has fog lights built into it. They have a new Rally Sport Drive mode, which is going to be designed for the off-roading side of things. It's going to adapt the electronic control system, so you have really big slides, like a more linear throttle response for better control is what they're saying, and more aggressive damping for better handling in those loose corners. I'm excited to see how this performs. The spoiler is also kind of inspired by the Focus RS, which, rip, that's so sad. Like when I read that, I was like, oh, my heart. But there were a lot of other body enhancements, and And those racing stripes that you see on the top of it, that's going to be standard. So that's how you'll visually be able to tell, not only because of the unique color combinations that they have, but it'll have 2 racing stripes too. And you can put an order in for this in the beginning of 2024, and they'll have delivery shortly after. So this is not a concept. This is actually going to production, which is not that big of a surprise because it's just a variant of the Mustang Mach-E that they already produce. So what do you guys think of this?
I love it. I think like making EVs that people want, even if it's just special versions, even if it's just like the key to Mustang success in the last probably 30 years has just been like an onslaught of special editions and anniversaries and tape and stripe packages and stuff like that. And I think that like this will kind of further that. I really like the GT already. Like it's one of my favorite performance EVs that I always forget about. And then when I sit down and think about it, I was like, oh yeah, I actually really like driving that one. And this just looks like it's going to be even more fun because some of the GT problems with handling, it seems like a lower grip, a lower amount of grip and like greater slip angles might make it even more fun. So I really like the idea.
I mean, yeah, like it's a Mustang, so it already is tail happy, but to make it even more tail happy, that's
Totally.
cool.
Totally.
What do you think, Hazel?
It's sick. I love it. I want to hoon it so bad. I want to have it like blast past me on some like off-road track and spray gravel in my face. Like I love this. This is exactly what you should be doing with EVs. It's really fun. My only criticism is this is definitely a bit Cold War of me. But like why give it a 2-stripe? Give it a 3-stripe. Like
Okay.
Cool. But yeah.
Aesthetic, that's a good
Like
negative.
if you're gonna make a
add
really
stripe.
silly car, yeah.
Add a stripe or 2 and then you're good. Now, apparently this is going to have like a little bit more range, like 250 miles of EPA estimated range. So that's interesting to hear how it must be cell chemistry or something that they're changing in order to, or something with the battery that they're changing, because performance wise, you're probably not going to get that if you are hooning it, as Hazel says, all the time, or, stepping on it, which this is what that's designed for. The only gripe I have about this is, and you can see it in the video right here, is this lady's taking her bike out the back of the car because it doesn't offer a tow hitch. And I actually wanted to buy this car, but I have to have a tow hitch for a receiver for my e-bikes to take with me. So that's only like it. Come on, Ford, put a tow hitch receiver on these, because I think it would be a game changer.
Can you not do either like a strap down hatch rack or a roof rack? I guess the e-bikes are too heavy for a roof rack.
Yeah, I don't want to. A lot of my e-bikes are like 70, 80 pounds, so putting those on the roof would be not fun.
Also, you lose so much efficiency as soon as you got a bike on the roof. Like, so it's like aerodynamically so bad.
And you still get a hit when it's on the back of the car too, but it is much easier to put them on the back. But anyways, I really like this. I'm excited because, as we'll talk about in a little bit, the Detroit Auto Show is coming up next week, and I hope they have this here. I think they probably will. So I'm gonna be going on the media day. I don't know if anybody else is. Is Brett? Are you going to Detroit? No. Maybe Seth will, because he's
Seth
close
will be
by.
there. Yep. Seth will be there.
I'll have to say hi to him there. But essentially at the Detroit Auto Show, Ford is doing a lot there, so I'm excited to see what everything they have on display. But I'm really hoping that they have the E-Rally there so I can kind of like climb in it, or at least get around it and shoot some video for it. So stay tuned for that, guys. Okay. Now, gosh, there were so many reveals this week is crazy. I'm going back real quick to the Germans, because as our dudes in the background were saying that we have some coming up about Mini, and that's what we want to talk about next. Is Mini is coming out with the new Cooper Electric and also the Countryman. Those are both things that they revealed at IAA, and I think they look so cool. So real quickly, Mini Cooper, the Cooper variant is going to have a couple different trims. So basically, one's going to have a smaller battery and less performance, and one's going to have big comparatively, but also it's really probably good for more of the European market. It might get it in the US, and it'll be okay for they're a premium brand, so it's hard to say because price-wise, will it align with what those expectations are? But I do think so, because it seems like they've upgraded quite a bit. Nothing too spectacular as far as like charging speeds or performance, but your standard 11 kilowatt AC charging. It's going to have battery preconditioning when you're route planning, which is a big deal nowadays. You got to kind of have that now. The drag coefficient's 0.28, 7 cubic feet of luggage compartment with the seats up, and 28 with the seats folded down, so pretty good space back there. Just a very cool design, in my opinion. A new operating system, which is going to have infotainment with 5G capabilities. They'll have AR navigation, I'm sure, as an option. They have the connected package, which is also going to let you play games in there and have different entertainment options with apps and streaming. And then it'll have a new voice command system with Hey Mini. Plus, you'll be able to include some optional tech like a digital key, the parking assistant, and a 360-degree camera viewing remotely. So I feel like they're really trying to bring this into the new era, and it's, really good to see. So that's the Cooper. What do you guys think of the Cooper so far?
I wish they'd stop making really big minis.
That's so European of you.
Yeah, I know it is, and I also know like you can't make the classic Mini anymore because it like the answer to where is the crumple zone being the driver is not actually an acceptable safety feature, etc. But like it's not really a Mini. Like
it's smaller than the current one, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll take it, but like that much space in the back and stuff, I'm like,
You're gonna hate the Countryman then, no?
Oh no, I completely hate the Countryman. Like I don't even like to look at that thing. Like I hate them on the road. I hate them every time I see one. Like they're just gross. But yeah, I mean, like, to be honest, I really like the interior. I like that it's simple. I complain a lot about all the big screens, and actually, I think this is really nice. It's an electric Mini. They're finally like doing one properly, and like, yeah, I'm sure it will actually be a really nice car to drive as well.
Hopefully fun. What do you think, Brett?
I'm pretty excited. For the electric Mini. I like that it's got a small battery. The WLTP rating is like 189 miles for the base and 250 miles for the S. Put that in EPA numbers, you're probably looking at 150 miles and then 200 miles. Doesn't really bother me, honestly. I think that's the perfect amount for a car this size. I don't really anticipate people taking lots of like really expansive long road trips in their Minis. But yeah, no, I love it. And I really love this view right here is my favorite. I really love how it still has that big bumper bar across the middle, but the way that they envelop the bumper bar with like an old looking Mini style grille opening, I think is really appealing. I think they finally kind of nailed that like retro look. Every other Mini has kind of tried, and I think this is the first one that really succeeds. And so I find it really appealing. We have a 2006 Mini in the driveway, my boyfriend's car, and it's like such a delight, such a fun, sprite little, like it's just a delightful little car. And so I hope that this one kind of has that same spirit, even as it moves toward electrification. I think it's going to be a cute little zip around.
Yeah, I mean, they stayed true to that design very well, and I love how smooth the surfacing looks and everything like that. I like the looks of it. Okay, let's get to then the one that Hazel hates is the Countryman. So what's interesting actually about the Cooper is that is going to be like new, like I believe it's the Cooper that is the new dedicated EV. So it's not going to be shared with a combustion variant, whereas the Countryman is, as far as I understand. I don't think I'm switching those, but if someone correct me if that's the case.
No, you're right.
I love the looks of this. I mean, that's very American of me. I like the bigger version of it, but there's going to be two variants of it, of course, just like the Cooper, which is the E and the SE. There will have an all-wheel drive version that's going to have a WLTP range of 269 miles of range and a little bit more performance. 313 horsepower, 364 pound-feet of torque. I think it'll probably be a little fun to drive. Battery is 66.45 kilowatt hours. AC charging is really great on this with 22 kilowatts. Makes me think that we're probably not going to get it in the US because of that. But maybe. And 130 kilowatt DC fast charging. So as far as like these smaller EVs goes, that's not bad. Usually we see like as far as like the Bolt and stuff at 50. It's good to see that they're progressing towards like 150 as like a minimum standard. A lot more increased space and interior. Massaging front seats are optional. Adjustable rear seats. It's going to have a trailer hitch available with a 2,645-pound towing capacity. Optional head-up display, and a lot of the other things that I talked about as the Mini Cooper. So, I really like this. What do you guys think? Besides Hazel hating it.
I don't have a super strong opinion. It's an SUV Mini, which, when it first came out, it was such an archetype in terms. It was just such a funny. I don't have any super strong opinions on it. I think it looks cute. I like kind of the more boxy design theme of the Countryman. I think it's kind of fun, but I really what I think they have nailed on both of these designs is the interiors. We touched on it very briefly in the Cooper, but the Countryman has that same big nice screen and great materials. Like cloth dashboard is such a thing for me. Like ever since like the 91 300ZX, give me more cloth dashboards. They're all so good. So I think that's really cool.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree on the interior. I also think cloth dashboards just feel really nice. Like it's one of those. I think we talked about this a few weeks ago, but like, or maybe last week actually. My concept of time is pretty poor. But like all of those kind of textural touches, all of that kind of like very tactile stuff within a car matter so much in an EV, because like people talk about this kind of soulless interior, this sort of lack of connection to the car and like whatever, and stuff like a cloth dashboard is like a really simple way of upping that, and it's cheaper. Like it's cheaper, it's more sustainable. Like what is not to like about this? That said, looking at any Countryman Mini, if I wanted to buy a Range Rover, why the hell would I put a Mini badge on it?
I mean, that's a little hyperbolic, don't you think? It's still the smallest SUV, at least in America. I think it's the smallest crossover you can get.
I mean, it's small for an SUV, but it looks like a Range Rover. Like those are the aesthetics.
Yeah, totally.
It don't look like a Mini.
Agreed 100%. Yeah.
I like it. I like big cars, though, clearly. I have a problem. Well, cool. Let's move on to, yes, so British, Greg says. I agree, Greg.
Sorry.
Okay. And if there aren't any other thoughts on that, let's move on, because, gosh, there was so much. So we have the Zeekr 001. And right now, as far as we know, this is looking like it'll be China only. Maybe it'll go to Europe. We probably aren't getting it in the US, let's be real, because we don't have any of the Zeekr products yet. And I think it's still probably a challenge with tariffs and everything else that's going on here to be able to get more Chinese vehicles over here. But anyways, what is unique about the Zeekr 001 FR is that it is like extremely high performance. So it has 1,265 horsepower, and it's going to accelerate 0 to 62 miles per hour in 2.0 seconds in a rolling start scenario. So it is really quick and impressive for that form factor, in my opinion. It can do tank turns. It's going to have probably about 100 kilowatt hour battery. It's going to feature the CATL, or I like to call them cattle, Qilin, I think is how you say it, batteries. So one of their latest developments in newer chemistry technologies. It's a 800 volt architecture vehicle, so you'll get 10 to 80% charging in about 15 minutes. And what I think is cool about this car is that the owners are going to have a personalized training session so that they know how to drive a high performance vehicle like that. I think it's pretty cool. But the price is going to be $137,750 equivalent in our money. So what do you guys think of this?
I want to get in this thing so badly.
Looks
like,
fun.
This is another one where I'm like, okay, I actually really like this. Like, because it looks like such a boy racer car. I don't know if that's a concept in the US, but like it's silly. It like it's a car, but obviously, like over 1,000 horsepower is too many horsepower. No one needs that much horsepower. Like if you've got more horsepower than a Formula One car, then like that's stupid. But like, yeah, like obviously this looks really fun to throw around somewhere, and you could also take it to like, oh god, what do you guys call them? Like Walmart or whatever, and it isn't a
Donuts.
totally stupid car, but like, yeah. This
Well,
is if I was a young man who had a lot of money, 100% I'm buying this thing.
I really like that you mentioned Walmart, because one of my favorite things to do is take high
Charging
horsepower
station.
cars to Costco. Like it's my favorite thing in the world to like load up. Had an Audi RS6, which is, you know, persona non grata here, but I took it right to Costco and loaded it up with a bunch of big old boxes. So agreed, 100%. I really like I've loved the styling of this car ever since I saw like the Lincoln Co versions in touring car racing. I thought it was such an appealing vehicle. And so, you know, the concept of like a hatchback touring car, electric touring car for the road is really, really cool. I'm a big fan. I love this view, that view that you got right there with like the flow through spoiler. It's such a, boy racer is a great word for it. Like, it's just such a like bonkers, like doofy, ultimately like kind of ugly, but also really cool styling feature. I'm a big fan.
Okay, so for me, it's like, okay, this is what's so challenging about Tesla dropping the prices is that you can get a Plaid for much cheaper than this. So
Yeah.
would you go for this or for a Plaid, and why? Like, that's my only thing is like, I think it looks cool and everything like that, but can I come to a point where I think that I should get this instead of a Plaid? I don't know. That's just how I feel. What do you guys think? It's like,
That's a fair statement. And, you know, Tesla, like, for better and worse, Tesla is a known quantity. Like, you know what you're going to get with the Plaid. You know exactly what the ownership experience is going to be like because it's been around for so much longer. And this is maybe a bit more of a question mark. So,
well, and Greg
but I
says
like
it
this.
looks way cooler than a Plaid. I think
I agree.
don't know.
I was just going to say, this looks a lot neater than a Plaid, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind
If
of
they
torn on
produce
it.
it looking like this, then yeah, I think this is a lot cooler than a Plaid. A Plaid feels like, and I'm going to be mean here, but like it feels like the kind of high performance car that you buy after you divorce and like run off with your secretary or something. Whereas this is like an actual fun car. And I say this is like a divorcee. So like yeah, like this feels well, maybe I'm just due my midlife crisis, probably. But
It
yeah.
looks very Shooting Brake-esque to me. Like
Mm.
that, I like that aspect of it. It's just like the back end kind of just continues out where I feel is like you can definitely tell that the Model S is like a traditional sedan, a full size sedan. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That's a tough one for me. Like the compromise is real.
Well,
Okay,
you probably won't have to make the decision anytime soon, given
I
that
know.
I doubt it's going to come to the U.S. So,
That is true. I'd have to
Hazel,
agree with that.
when they arrive on European roads and you've got that, you know, 6-figure sum to spend on a car, you let us know where you net out.
Yeah. If I get to put one of these on an autobahn, then like, yeah. Relatedly, like speaking about kind of like Tesla or like Chinese Tesla knockoffs is like probably way too rude a thing to say, but like, I know we were going to talk about the smart car,
Yes.
and that to me, that looks like a complete Tesla rip-off. Like if you bought a Tesla on Alibaba, that is what it would look like.
Yeah, let's move to that. The Smart number 3. Now, this is probably something that you guys are only going to get because they don't sell Smart here anymore in the U.S. market. But and we have seen the Smart number 3 for a little bit. This isn't like, but they're giving more specifications about this essentially. So, 268 horsepower, single motor variant. They are going to have a more powerful version, the Brabus, that's going to get 422 horsepower with a dual motor setup, one on each axle. And they said that it's going to go 0 to 60 on the Brabus version, 3.7 seconds. And it'll have 150 kilowatt DC fast charging. I'm so sad. I wish that this is another Geely brand, actually a joint venture with Daimler. So with the next like 3 cars that we're talking about are all owned by Geely, which is the parent company of Volvo and Polestar, as well as some of the people in the comments have been talking about. But yeah, Smart is too. So I just think I love the design, the simplicity of it. It very much reminds me like the concept, like the idea of like the Mini Cooper is like a small vehicle that's, giving us pretty much everything that we would want out of a little EV.
I just like so I love smart cars. I love the original smart cars. I was really charmed by the one. Like I wanted to own one from when I was a kid. If it wasn't that they're mostly non-ULEZ compliant because they're all kind of old now, then I would probably buy one. Like ULEZ is like the London low emissions regulation. But like I don't understand why you would take a brand where part of it was like they're really snub-nosed little cars, like they're really like pushed in. Even in the combustion versions, they barely had like a bonnet or whatever you guys call the front of a car. And now it's got one with a motor. Like, why does it look nothing like a smart car? Why, like, I
mean, it's true.
I don't really get this brand.
It's like they're trying to reinvent it in a way, but I don't know. I don't like the fact that they aren't tying as much into the heritage, but I do like the way it looks, and I think that the specs are decent for what it is.
I think the
technical specs are decent. Yeah, for sure.
I think it's pretty cute, but I kind of agree that it just doesn't have any really defined identity. It just kind of looks a little bit amorphous to me, and I don't know. I haven't honestly been paying attention too much to it for that reason. I probably should just put my journalist hat back on and actually dig in. But it kind of just is a little bit forgettable to me for some reason. In any case, I would much rather have something like the Mini or one of those other city car competitors.
Well, it's just like, we don't have too many of these small EVs like this in the US, like if you really think about it, because they discontinued the i3 and, the Cooper that we have right now that's electric in the US is like under 100 miles of range, basically. So for me, it's like, I would like to see more options that are a lower price point for people to be able to go EV. But again, I know this version is probably built in China. And so the tariffs are a problem, and that whole situation of, the dealers, as well, I think Carl pointed out, having them in a dealership. But the problem is if you do put it in a Mercedes dealership, you're blending a different demographic together, and that's always been a challenge for automakers, is trying to provide a luxury experience for those Mercedes customers, and then the smart customers kind of like battling that at the same time when they're not like in the premium class. So, but yeah, I mean, I just wish we had smaller EVs that more people could go electric, and we had those options, but that's all right.
I wonder how far off it would be to... No, not at all. Go ahead, Hazel.
I really liked Carl's comment that it's a pair that you can buy today.
That's funny. That is funny. Yes. It does give off pair vibes. Fisker pear, if anybody is wondering what we're talking about. What were you going to say, Brett?
I don't even remember. We can talk about the pear. I like the pear. More affordable, cute little city cars for sure.
Let's talk about one actually next that is not even close to this price point probably, but is another Geely product. So the Lotus Emeya, I don't know how to say this, I'm sorry. Emeya is what I'm guessing it is, but this was actually just revealed, was it last night?
Yeah.
So they didn't give us too much information about it, but we do have some. It is going to be built on the same platform as the Electra, so the SUV that we have seen that was at Pebble Beach recently. But this is on the electric premium architecture, which is a like bespoke platform from the Geely Group for Lotus. It is 905 horsepower, 726 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 62 miles per hour in just 2.8 seconds. So this is designed to be an all-electric Hyper GT super fast, a dual motor all-wheel drive with a 2-speed transmission setup and a top speed of about 160 miles per hour. It's going to have active aero, electronically controlled air suspension. It'll have a very similar range from what we're hearing to the Electra, so about 373 miles on the WLTP cycle, 102 kilowatt hour battery pack, so I think that's 10 kilowatt hours less than what we saw in the Electra. But similar charging performance, 93 miles of range can be added within 5 minutes. It's going to get from 10% to 80% state of charge in about 18 minutes with a 350 kilowatt DC fast charger. It's going to be built in Wuhan, China, and it's going to arrive in the US by Q4 of 2024. They said that we'll have more details about this car come Q4 of this year. So hopefully relatively soon, but I'm expecting this to be a pretty high price point as far as, when it does go on sale, just because, Lotus is a premium brand. So it'll probably be somewhat expensive. So what do you guys think of the Emeya, or however you say this?
I maybe have like a slightly like Hazel was talking about with the minis. I have a bit of a problem with the Electra and the Emeya now, just because the Lotus is a lightweight sports car brand, and I know that brands can change. Porsche did it in the 2000s with the Cayenne and then the Panamera, but I just wish there was a little bit more of that like lightweight, tossable Lotus DNA. I don't think that it needs to be fast in a straight line. If it's anything like the Electra, which it sounds like it might be, it's not going to be particularly dynamic. It's not going to be particularly the handling isn't going to be anything like it is in the Emira, which is a lightweight gas engine sports car. So I think it looks great though. I think the styling looks much better here than it does on the Electra, a little bit lower and a little bit sleeker. So there's some good news.
Yeah, I basically agree. I think so lightweighting in EVs is obviously something that is really important to pursue, particularly for performance cars, particularly for performance handling cars, and more generally for all cars for efficiency. Given that Lotus is the weird, and as Cobb sort of just said in the comments, it is a nerd brand. It's it's a Formula One brand. It's a sports cars for doing sports brand.
For the drivers.
Yeah, well, and also it's genuinely it's motorsports technology. It's taking the extremes of lightweighting, the extremes of aerodynamics and stuff, and putting them into cars that aren't really good road cars on any level, because that's not the point of them. You're not going to get much into the back from Costco, because that's not the point of a Lotus. And it disappoints me that Geely as a parent company aren't using Lotus as a lightweighting lab in order to put that into kind of all of the rest of the brands that they're involved in, because you could use Lotus, which, okay, Lotus is never going to sell very many cars. It never has. It's never really been a profitable brand. It probably never will be. I don't believe that making an SUV and slapping a Lotus badge on it will suddenly make that badge more valuable, because this isn't an SUV, obviously. It is a sports car or a sedan, but that Porsche thing of trying to get round your own reputation just doesn't feel like the point of owning a brand like Lotus, where the only thing they've essentially bought is the badge, because this is coming from a totally new factory. It's basically completely different things, and I don't get why you wouldn't use this as an actual laboratory for doing things. So I'm sure it'll probably be fine to drive. Lotus isn't a comfortable luxury brand, and this looks like a comfortable luxury car.
I think they're walking a delicate line, to be honest, because I think, like you're saying, they want to have the heritage. That's what Geely does. I mean, to be fair, they've bought a lot of brand name things that have been struggling and trying to convert them to go electric, because they can do it at scale. But I think they're interestingly enough, walking this delicate line, because I could see them potentially bringing out this product and the Electra and all these new EVs initially as like, these higher profit margin type vehicles that are a higher price point where they can collect some of that money back as far as like manufacturing goes. Because generally we see with the luxury products, that's where you make quite a bit of profit margins, and that's why a lot of automakers go that direction first. But I think it would be so cool, it's like you're saying, is then them working, and hopefully they are doing this, but working with Lotus and advancing that technology to get back to that lightweightness that they're known for, and coming out with at least a variant. Like if they do want to walk this line of being like known for this brand, but also move into the modern era of going EV, which consequently has heavy batteries, having a version of these that are stripped down like a track package type thing, where it's like we don't have all these like extra materials and insulation and like cup holders and stuff like that we see in like the high performance cars. Like make a variant like that Lotus people, that's what they like, they love. Those customers love that. So I could see it working
I
in
really
that
love
regard.
that idea.
I
I
can
love
see-
the
Well,
idea you have the luxury version, and then you can also have the extreme version where it's like, okay, this don't have no air cushion suspension, like this thing's gonna shake
Yes.
you around and whatever, and like the seats ain't comfortable. Like, do you want a Lotus, or
Yeah.
do you want the one for driving to your CEO job?
I'm still holding
Well,
out for that hope.
And to the automaker's credit, like they are capable of building lightweight cars. The Emeya hypercar weighs, theoretically weighs something around 37 or 3,800 pounds, which is only a few hundred pounds more than the Emira, which is a gas-powered sports car. So they're capable of doing it. It's not a matter of whether or not Lotus can do lightweight in the electric era. It's just going to take that effort, that engineering, and hopefully, Jonas commented that maybe Electra is gonna bring Electra and Emeya will bring those high profit margins to Lotus, and then they'll have the money and the incentive to develop great sports cars.
Yeah, I mean, like proving themselves. I think they're like trying to appeal to a more wider luxury audience, like Hazel was kind of mentioning at the start, just because, so many people, if you want an EV and a performance EV, you go for a Tesla because they provide that experience for you. But there are so many customers out there that do not want a Tesla for whatever reason, whether it's they don't like Elon, whether they just don't, they're sick of seeing the Model S being on the road for X amount of years without any new, like they see them everywhere. So it's like, I want something different. They can offer that. And eventually I really hope that they get to their roots where they can develop that. And I think they have the potential to do so with having Geely as a parent company, like with all that huge money behind them and support to scale it. I think that there is great potential for that. So I'm holding out hope. But one thing before we move on is that I wanted to mention, which is so cool, is that they're actually doing an experiential marketing campaign in New York City. So if anyone that's watching is in New York or is like close to the city, they have a 4-story parking lot that they have rented out for a couple days. But on Saturday, tomorrow, they are going to have the public, it like open for the public, where they'll have this car supposedly on display, but also they're going to have a ton of like historic Lotus vehicles in this like whole campaign, so that you can like walk through the history of Lotus. And so like I saw it in the press release. I think that it's just, I wish I could go so bad. I can't, but if anyone's in New York City, like give it a shot. They had on like Eventbrite, I think the tickets to they were free tickets to get into this. But yeah, tomorrow they're having this really cool, it sounds like, experiential campaign in downtown New York City. So
Totally go if you get a chance. Like obviously I live in the UK, and Lotus used to be based in the UK. They used to do a lot of this kind of thing, and especially in London. And honestly, like it was always worth going. Like they're a brand even now, like even with this changed ownership and all the times that they've been flipped and switched between companies and whatever, they're a brand that does heritage really well.
Yeah, I agree. And I just think I wish I could go so bad. So someone go and post on like Twitter or something like that and tag us, because I want to see what's going on over there. It looks, just from the teaser videos I've seen, looks pretty cool. So okay, that wraps up for the EV news. We do have more news, though, because we're going to get into the Tesla block.
Tesla news.
Yes. Perfect timing on that one. All right. So a lot of Tesla news for this week, as we can imagine, because every week it seems to be that there's a lot going on, especially as we ramp closer to Cybertruck production. One of the main things that I just thought was a huge deal for this week was Tesla announced that they are partnering with Hilton, which they already had a partnership, to be clear, but they're going to deploy the universal wall connector, and that is the charging station that essentially has the Magic Dock built in. So the connector itself can convert either to the Tesla connector, NACS or NACS, or it can turn into a J1772. So that wall connector is going to get installed at 2,000 Hilton locations across North America, and they're averaging 6 dispensers per, or not averaging, but at least 6 dispensers per location will be the minimum that they deploy. This, I mean, like, I was so happy to see this. I've been kind of like complaining about why haven't companies like Hilton or Marriott taken a big step forward in deploying level 2 charging at their hotels? And I've used I use tons of level 2 chargers at hotels, and I pick my hotels based on that when I'm road tripping, which is basically like I don't really have like a normal commute, so I'm road tripping a lot. But a lot of places would normally have just like 2 level 2 chargers, so that when you arrive, you're like, oh man, I really hope it's still open, and you check on PlugShare to make sure that it's operational and everything like this. But this is across North America, so Mexico, Canada, United States, they're going to put in these charging stations, and I'm just so happy to see this. And I hope this is similar to how the NACS deployment was with the automakers adopting it, and like just hotel chain after hotel chain becomes like they make a deal with them. What do you guys think of this? I mean, I'm so excited about this.
It does really surprise me because, like, the places that people try and install chargers a lot of the time don't necessarily make all that much sense. Like, basically because I think like people think about them as replacement gas stations, and that's not really how charging behavior works, or like the way that people kind of behave with EVs, or the way that you manage EVs. Whereas if you are somewhere overnight, which is the entire purpose of a hotel, that is exactly where you want to charge. And so it surprises me that there aren't actually like, yeah, like you say, that there aren't loads of hotel chains that, you know, like Premier Inn or whatever isn't saying like, hey, we're partnered with insert charging company in your region here. Like, yeah, because yeah, it would be a selling point. Like, even if you've got a plug-in hybrid, it's a selling point.
Honestly, I will pay a little bit of extra money to stay at a hotel that has EV charging, like, and I have before. And I've seen it where, like, so I was working a lot with Nissan at the beginning of this year, launching the Aria. So I work on education campaigns where I take the car to the dealership. And I was out in the Northeast for 4 months, I think it was, with that car, driving from dealer to dealer in that region. And I would stay at some hotels that had like there was one I remember specifically that was like charge point, like there were like 12 of them, and I was like, this is heaven, this is amazing. And to someone's point in the comments, they're like, yeah, maybe they're not free all the time, and who knows what they'll be doing with this, because you know, a lot of the hotels are independent, so then they can decide what the cost of that is on their own. And we see that with other like charge point or blink charging and things like that. But it'll be interesting to see if they do.
I mean, I pay extra for an EV charger. Like, you know, when you pay extra for a breakfast or like whatever, like when you're booking a hotel and well, I don't know if this is a thing in the US, actually, to be fair. I don't think I've ever booked a hotel in the US. But like, you know, you can add on extras to your hotel stay. If it was like, hey, $5 more EV charging or whatever, then like that seems like a no-brainer.
Yep.
Or there's a card that they give you when you check in that lets you bypass the payment on the charger itself. You know, there's a lot of great ways to do this, and I think it adds a lot of value to the hotel room, as everyone in the comments has said, that not having to stop for gasoline on the trip just makes life so much easier if you walk out every morning to a full battery.
It's just like one of those use cases where I'm like, this is so obvious to me. It makes so much sense, and it shocks me that we are to this point and we're getting these big announcements. Like this should have been a long time ago, in my opinion. And I'm just happy that it's happening because it's going to make a huge difference. And like Hazel said, we need to match our dwell time with like what we're doing throughout the day to like make the experience of owning an EV that much better than an ICE vehicle. And people just need to realize that like you don't have to go to a fast charging station if you are having to do a task where there is a level 2 charger where you can get, some miles out of your time that you're spending hours at the grocery store or whatnot. So I'm just so I'm so happy about this. It's like finally, that was like the biggest Tesla news for me this week. Also, just a side note, Honda is the newest to officially announce that they are adopting the NACS connector as well. So just briefly touch on there a whole list of automakers now that have converted, and it kind of made sense as far as Honda goes because they are utilizing the GM Ultium platform for their first couple EVs or so, but they have officially announced that they are converting to NACS as well. But next thing is that Tesla is actually going to be at the North American International Auto Show in Detroit here this week, which Tesla does. They do. Don't get marketing and advertising mixed up. They don't advertise. They don't like to spend ad money, but they do they always have done a ton of marketing. And this is just another element of marketing that they're doing. They actually have displays at like Electrify Expo that's been going throughout the country this year. And they are going to be having a display at the Detroit Auto Show. Not only that, but they will be having a ride and drive. So there's an inside EV track, and there's also one out by the waterfront where you can actually experience a Tesla if you haven't yet. This to me just signifies that yes, of course, the demand is a problem for them. So they really need to get butts in seats to try to get their sales figures up along with those price drops. Is anybody going to? You're not going. Seth's going to. Potentially, we talked about this, but what do you guys think about Tesla showing up at the Detroit Auto Show? They've done it once before, but it's been like, 8 years or something like that?
Yeah, I think it does. Oh, sorry.
All you.
I think it does show how much Tesla is realizing that it has serious competition. There's obviously been within the past year a lot of stuff that has made people considerably more wary about Tesla as a brand, due to the behavior of Elon. And I think, yeah, the fact that they are doing more things like this to try and actually kind of like have that IRL connection, to convince people that these are things they want, and not just things that turn up when they book an Uber, or whatever, which actually I do think Teslas sort of have a bit of like Prius syndrome at the minute, which is that they're seen as fleet cars by a lot of people. I don't know if that's also the case in the US, but I think they have sort of built up that reputation, at least in London, because they are still very expensive cars here compared to like almost anything else that you can buy, including electric vehicles. So like it would be an odd choice, but it does show something that they're turning up.
It's kind of a fun shot across the bow too, because Tesla's had such a battle until 2020 or something like that with the state of Michigan regarding direct sale. So it's kind of fun that they're showing up on the other guy's home turf and showing off a little bit. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I like that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I hope that they also bring the updated Model 3. I hope that we get more US specific information.
I hope they bring the Model 3 refresh, and I also hope they bring the Cybertruck. I know in the article on InsideEVs, Eric had said, like, oh, hopefully this means they'll have a new vehicle to show off and they'll do rides on Cybertruck or something like that. I think that they'll probably just have the old lineup to drive, just because, Well, what's interesting about the Detroit market, for those of you who don't know, like I live in this area and it is very heavily dominated as far as sales go by the big three because everyone gets a plan or some kind of discount because they all either work for the car companies or the suppliers. So this is a really hard market to show off at the Detroit Auto Show because you're not going to get too many like buyers that are going to go stray away from the big three. So it's kind of risky in that regard that they are spending the money to show off their cars here and do the ride and drives for, this whatever 2-week period or whatnot, including the media days for the Detroit Auto Show. So I think that's interesting. But to me, every day I go out, it used to be like I did not see any other EVs on the road. It was rare that I even saw a Tesla, but now it's like every time I go out, I see a Tesla. So this market must be gaining some traction. I just actually went to my local Tesla store this week in Clarkston where they had an event. And I just thought it was so cool because it was an event where they brought in not only the owners, but also like people who are EV curious. And they did like an educational session. So they were like, obviously offering demo rides and stuff like that, but they went over like the app and tips of using the app so you could learn like how to optimize and really, have the best experience of owning an EV. They also showed us how to like change the cabin filter. And I just think that is very cool that they're trying to do more of those educational sessions, even in their stores. But I do see that that was also an act of trying to get people to buy cars because like that seeming to me, you have this event, but then you're also showing up at the Detroit Auto Show. You're at all these other like the Electrify Expo, as I mentioned before. They need to get people buying like now. So this kind of seems somewhat dire. They do have some more levers to pull, but as far as like giving out free software elements like we talked about last week with the FSD or the supercharging miles and things like that. But I don't know. To me, this signifies a big, push to try to get sales going. All right. A couple other quick points that we wanted to bring up before we wrap up is that the Model 3 refresh, there was a first drive review by the Italian team over for InsideEVs, and it has subtitles and everything. So if you guys want to watch that first ride review, they'll link it probably in the chat here. But one thing to note just real quickly, we kind of mentioned this last week, but the gear selector is up on the headliner now, and a lot of the elements that we saw from the Model 3 just through the walkarounds and stuff, a lot of similar technology was taken from like the Model S and put in there with the rear screen and these ambient lighting elements and stuff like that, moving forward to a more modern version of it. And in those vehicles like the Model X and the Model S, they used to have the gear selector buttons down in the center console, but now in the Model 3 they moved them up on the headliner, which is kind of interesting. But they will have that touch screen shifting gear selector with I think the beta version of it being predictive, so it will automatically decide, oh, you want to move forward into drive mode, then we'll do it for you type thing. So I don't know. You shouldn't have to use it on a regular basis if you use that touchscreen or the technology. It's just kind of there for a fail safe for safety reasons, like it's a requirement. But
Yeah.
a little interesting.
I get that like there's not a lot of gear shifting in EVs because you don't need to. But like if you're trying to park something or like just to like, I hate the idea that I've got to faff around with the screen to put it into reverse.
Sure. I don't know. I used it this past week when we were at the Tesla showroom. We took a ride in the Model X long range just to see all the differences because, as I mentioned before, we have a 2016 Model S and then I have a Model Y. And so even just the Model X long range is different from what I've experienced in the vehicles that I have. And I was actually like, it's not as bad as I thought it was shifting, just swiping up to drive and swiping down to reverse. So I wasn't too bothered by it. We didn't try the predictive version of it, but it was like selectable in the screen as a beta option. But I don't know, it didn't really bother me too much, I would say. I think people will get used to it, but it's definitely not one of those features for like people who want to have the modern car experience where it's not a big learning curve. Like there's still little things like that you're going to have to teach yourself. But I saw that like back in the day, I launched the 2013, the new MKZ had buttons on the dash for shifting out, and that was like a huge thing. People were like going crazy, or I don't know about this, not having like a shifter in the console region. But that's just kind of like, to me, the progression of modern technology until people like really have a stink about it and then they have to change it back. But I don't think Tesla cares. They care about parts.
I'm like a self-confessed, like I am a bit of a like fuddy-duddy about this kind of stuff. Like I get freaked out by like start buttons instead of a key, or like the button to take off the handbrake. That really weirds me out. I want an actual manual handbrake. So like, yeah, I'm probably just like a bit behind the curve there.
I think as long as it works, the predictive everything, like as long as it works effectively and you're not constantly having to second guess what the car is doing, people will get used to it. It'll be a weird thing for 2 weeks or something like that, and then people will get used to it. But that was my experience with the it wasn't MKZ, but it was the GMC has like these little trigger shifters, and it's weird, and I didn't love it, but I was like, I now know what I'm doing after 2 or 3 days behind the wheel. So anyway,
yeah, just a quick little mention. We did see quite a few Cybertruck articles as well, but one that I want to point out of all of them is that there was a Cybertruck spotted in Vegas at a supercharger, and the reason why I want to bring this up is because you could see like how close it was to the bollards, and like, to me it's interesting because where the charging port is, like, is this going to work? What are they going to do? Are they going to extend the cables at the charging stations? Like, I think there's going to be a big problem with supercharging units staying like operational, to be fair. I know there's bollards there, but like, I think they're going to get like pretty beat up because of this. I don't know if you guys saw this, but look how close it is to that. Like, that is crazy. The hitch receiver is right up against the bollard.
Like, also, I don't really want to imagine what would happen if you ran a Cybertruck through a supercharger. Like, that doesn't feel like a good thing for me. Like that.
It's like a Mad Max movie in my head right now.
Yeah,
it's just
like why is that charging port not at the rear? Why is it?
Cars.
Why have they put it where a gas thing would be?
Well, they
cars
always
don't explode on impact, but this one might explode on impact. Like,
no, it's a tank. Everything else will explode, not the Cybertruck.
I don't like the idea of an on-fire supercharger. That's not.
It looks like the cable is fairly stretched. Well, they put their charge ports on all of their vehicles in that same location on the rear side, on the driver's side, because the way that the superchargers are set up, like the cable, it is really designed, the length of it can really only go there, which will be interesting when all these other vehicles are adopting the NACS connector, the port, to see if they do change their strategy as well to optimize this, supercharging layout. But I just thought that was interesting to point out, is that it's so close. Like, are they going to like, I know that the next generation of superchargers are going to have a longer cable, but there are so many already in the ground that are of this style. And is Tesla going to retrofit those? Like, how are they going to address this? Do they think that they can get away with it? I don't know. I don't think for long. I think they're going to get pretty destroyed.
That looks like a really uncomfortable setup as well. Like, just from the perspective of the person plugging it in, like, that's a pain.
Yeah. See a lot of bashed knees going on for sure.
We'll see. Well, I think that probably wraps it up for today. We did go over, so sorry about that, guys. But there was a lot to talk about this week. It was very overwhelming. And hopefully next week will be the same because I'm going to be going to the Detroit Auto Show, but I'm also going to the battery show. That's super nerdy of me, I know, but it's the day before the media day at the Detroit Auto Show. So hopefully I can find some cool stuff there and show you what I find for next week. And we'll have even more news to cover. But don't forget to follow all of us on our social media platforms and subscribe to Inside EVs if you could. We're going to be hopefully having all 4 of the regular hosts for next week, which is Patrick George and Alex Goy will be coming back. Hopefully, I'm not a liar this time around. And then Hazel and I. So I think it's going to be really exciting to have the regular crew that we'll have. Although we do love you, Brett. You've been a great contributor. Thank you for that. And I'm sure you'll see Brett regularly over the course of the coming episodes too. But follow Hazel on X. She's very active there. I know I follow her for a long time. Brett as well, and he's on Threads and all that too. So yeah, give us a follow, and we'll see you guys all next week. We appreciate you joining us and watching, and hopefully we'll have another exciting one for next week. Ciao.